Good morning and welcome to the Unitarian Fellowship of Nanaimo. Our mission is to create spiritual connection and bring compassion, discovery, and social justice to life. My name is Catherine Hazel, and I am your service leader this morning. My pronouns are she, her. Could you please take a moment now to silence or turn off your cell phones? Thank you. Let's say hello to everyone attending on Zoom. You have to point to the frog and wave, because that's how they can see you. Right. Whatever your hopes, dreams, and aspirations, whatever your race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, gender identity, whatever makes you who you are warmly welcomed here. In keeping with our Unitarian Universalist aspiration of radical inclusion, we invite you to share your pronouns as well as your name if you're comfortable doing so. We have a diversity of voices on Sunday mornings, so our services vary from week to week. They usually run from 60 to 75 minutes. If this is your first time with us, a very special welcome to you. If you are joining us online, please consider sharing your contact information with us. You can do this by going to the chat icon at the bottom of your screen and typing it in there. We'd love to welcome you to the community. You can go to our website, ufon.ca, which has more detailed information about who we are, the services we offer, and how you can connect with us. We acknowledge today that we meet on the traditional territory of the Nanaimo First Nation. As Unitarians, we are committed to the work of reconciliation required to address the harm done to all Indigenous peoples and their cultures by non-Indigenous peoples. We have much to learn from the Indigenous perspective that the earth is the source of all life and that our responsibility is to honor and care for it. And now for the announcements. Just a wee reminder, after the service, the congregation will be able to buy packets of native seeds provided by the Nanaimo Area Land Trust Native Plant Nursery. They are $4 each, so you'll need some toonies. The beautiful flowers in the hall you see this morning were brought by Sharon Bolt, who helps out in so many ways, and today as one of our greeters. To find out about all the special events, groups, and meetings taking place in the fellowship, either go to the calendar on our website or read the weekly updates email sent to you on Fridays. Let us now enter into sacred time. Leah Hokanson, our musical director, will lead us into worship through music.
Good morning, everyone. Our prelude this morning is called To My Old Brown Earth, and it's by Pete Seeger. To my old brown earth and to my old blue sky, I'll now give these last few molecules of I. And you who sing, and you who stand nearby, I do charge you not to cry. Guard well our human chain, watch well you keep it strong, as long as sun will shine. And this our home, keep pure and sweet and green, for now I'm yours, and you are also mine. Guard well our human chain, watch well you keep it strong, as long as sun will shine. And this our home, keep pure and sweet and green,
Our speaker this morning is Paul Chapman, Executive Director of the Nanaimo Area Land Trust, or NALT. Paul sits on the board of the Land Trust Alliance of BC and has worked for NALT since 2008. NALT has worked with the community, conservation organizations, and government agencies to fulfill its mission to support, promote, and protect the natural values of land and water in our area. Paul will reflect on how environmental conservation practice has changed during the past 30 years and what it may look like in the years to come. We will now have the opening words, Springtime Call to Worship by Susan Davison Archer. The earth is warming, the bird song increases, the sweeter breezes brush our cheeks, and the earth holds hope in its seeds and buds. Come, let us gather this morning with joyful noise, with warm hearts, and with hopeful spirits, for we are one with the renewal of the earth and blessedly held in the love of one another. And we'll now have the chalice lighting. Around us, light is returning. It rekindles the spirit of life in the skeletons of trees. It brings forth new shoots from the soil. It wakes us from our winter slumber and invites us to see what lies beyond. We light this chalice in the spirit of our earth's awakening and to reaffirm our commitment to the value of our home.
Please rise in body or in spirit, and we'll sing together Rising Green.
I would now like to call on Larry Bolt to give us an update on the canvas. No? It's Dawn. Okay. All right then. Dawn, take it away.
Sorry to disappoint. Hi, my name's Don Gayton, he, him. So, do we have the slide? Okay. Yeah, so the number today, so we were hoping to have everyone's pledges in by today, but we don't. So, but the big finale is next week. So, just so you know, so today's number is 56,540, which is 2/3 of our goal, which means we still have a third to go. One thing why Brenda is pointing that she has pledge forms if you want to fill them out now and not use the form online. The good news is, though, I mean, we're only 1/3 to go, we still have about 50% of people still haven't pledged yet. And so if everyone pledged just what they did last year, we would be fine. So I hope everyone will do that. And if you have trouble remembering, I just go to Brenda and you can just jot down the sum you want to pledge and put your name in. I mean, the thing is, it's not like what is it? It's not like a bank or you're not signing your life away. It's an estimate of what you hope to give next year, because then that's what we use for budgeting. So it's very important. Thanks very much.
And now I'd like to call on Taylor Sinclair to give a canvas testimonial.
Good morning. My name is Taylor Sinclair, and my pronouns are she, her, and hers. Why did I or we pledge? I feel blessed to have been introduced to this community by Brian Short 2 years ago. The community has created a sense of being rooted to thrive, as moving here has had us adapting to many changes. I'm going to use the word community in an acrostic form to demonstrate what we have experienced or gained here. And these are our own personal experience. C for connection, compassion, and cooperation. O for open-mindedness, outreach, and optimism. M for meaningfulness and the ability to manifest, which is your pledges. M again for being mindful and motivated. U, uplifting, services and talks. United, we accomplish more. N, we get to nourish our minds and hearts. I always come away inspired, and there's inclusivity in this group. T, together we can achieve or surpass the $85,000 goal. Y equals yes. And in quoting Reverend Jonathan Kwan, I consider the impact that Now Wow will have on UFON by pledging. I close with the word Ubuntu, which is derived from the South African Nguni languages. I am because we are. And as Desmond Tutu stated, I am human because I belong. Thank you.
We will now have our offering. If you're in the hall, Charlotte Joyner and Sharon Bolt will now pass the baskets for the collection. If this is your first time with us, your presence is your contribution. Those online can go to our website and click the big blue donate button on the homepage and follow the instructions to donate via e-transfer or check. And for those of you who don't carry cash, we now accept your donations via debit or credit cards. This can be done at our welcoming table near the entry doors after the service. To help the wider community, 50% of all anonymous donations received are donated to the designated charity of the month. Our charity this month is Eco Justice, which began as the Sierra Legal Defense Fund back in 1990 in response to the Exxon Valdez disaster, then the world's worst oil spill. What started as two determined people working out of the back of a car is now a leading Canadian charity led by lawyers, scientists, and environmental experts. Eco-justice lawyers have been taking governments and polluters to court for 35 years, fighting for environmental justice at every level, free of charge. If you are donating online or by check and want your donation to go to Eco-justice, you'll need to make a note of that on the e-transfer or check. We are grateful for your offering.
From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and from this we live. From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and from this we live.
As a spiritual community, it is our intention to be authentically present to one another, especially in these difficult times. One way we do this is by taking time in the service to listen to the significant personal milestones in our lives. If you have had such a milestone and wish to share it, now is the time to do so. We'll begin with those of you in the hall, and then we'll invite those attending via Zoom. As I place the final pebble in the water bowl for the joys and concerns that have been left unspoken, I ask that you hold in your heart everything that you have heard and felt.
We share in love, we listen in love, we hold one another in love. Each joy and concern we witness and learn and grow together in love. And grow together in love.
And now we will have the story for all ages.
Golden Acorn Tree by Jocelyn Argueta. Illustrated by Pei-Li Wang. On a crisp autumn morning, a little squirrel woke up with a nice big stretch. Ah, what a beautiful day to start collecting acorns for the winter, she said. The little squirrel took her favorite path in the forest. She scurried through the trees, turning left and right until she reached the golden acorn tree with leaves as bright as the sun and a trunk as tall as a mountain. The golden acorn tree had acorns sprinkled on every branch, and the little squirrel gathered as many as she could carry. On her way home, she shared the acorns with her neighbors. One for the friendly bunny to add to her cupboard, one for the curious owl to inspect with wonder, one for the quiet skunk who was peeking out of his window. "Why do you always give the skunk an acorn when he rarely comes outside?" asked the owl. The little squirrel replied, "The forest is home to all of us, so we should all take care of each other." Then she hurried home to roast an acorn for dinner. The next day, the little squirrel picked more acorns to deliver to her friends. One for the mama bear to share with her cub, one for the active raccoon to kick around all day, one for the quiet skunk who was peeking out of his window. "Why do you always give the skunk an acorn when he rarely talks to us?" asked the raccoon. The little squirrel replied, "The forest is home to all of us, so we should all take care of each other. Then she went back to her treehouse and added more acorns to her growing collection. One morning, as the little squirrel approached her favorite golden tree, she heard a powerful crash and felt the ground shake. She ran as fast as she could to see what was happening. She watched the golden acorn tree disappear into the distance. "Why are you taking my special tree and all of our acorns?" the little squirrel cried. She walked back to her treehouse with her head hung low. All of the neighbors were worried about the sad little squirrel. When she passed the skunk's home, she was surprised by a soft whisper. "Hi, little squirrel. Why are you so sad?" The little squirrel sighed. "Someone took the golden tree, and now I don't have any acorns to save for the winter or to share with everyone." The skunk said, "Follow me. I want to show you something." He led the little squirrel down a secret path. They squeezed through the bushes. They scurried through the trees, turning left and right until they reached a garden full of golden trees. Some were short, but others were tall, with acorns hanging from every branch. The little squirrel couldn't believe her eyes. Where did all of these trees come from? The skunk smiled. "Every year, I planted some of the acorns that you so kindly shared with me." The skunk picked up an acorn and gave it to the little squirrel. "The forest is home to all of us, so we should all take care of each other." They gathered as many acorns as they could carry to share with all of their neighbors. The community thanked the skunk for his generosity. As the seasons went on and the new acorn trees grew, so did all of their friendships. The end.
We hold you in our love as you go, as you go. May your heart be at peace as you go. To nurture the spark of your precious life. We hold you in our hearts as you go. Nous vous enterrons et non mettrons et toujours. Devant vous soyez pleine de joie. Cultivant notre ciel jour après jour. Nous vous enterrons d'amour pour toujours.
And now it is time for the meditation. Relax, sit back, and center yourselves. I will read some words which will be followed by 1 minute of silence. Leah will bring us out of the silence with music. This is our home, but not just ours, by Laura Bogle. We gather here to remember this is our home, but not just ours. This land we live on, this water we drink, this air we breathe, these old mountains that hold us steady to our ground, these forests that give us their healing green, these flowers that give us their beauty and fragrance, these fields that give us our daily bread, these stars that show us our place. The wilderness and the tame backyards, all of it our home. We remember the ancestors who have lived on this land and who have shaped it, the First Nations, the settlers, the mountaineers, the farmers, the hunters, the immigrants, the artists, the families, the explorers, the business people, the engineers, the builders, the scientists, the teachers, the workers, the leaders. We inherit their choices. We honor the animals and creatures that have made their home in this land, the ones here now and the ones that used to be here. We envision the future generations who will live on this land and let their voices fill our hearts. We gather here to remember this is our home, but not just ours.
Hi, everyone. Hi. My name's Paul Chapman. My pronouns are he, him. And I should start by saying everything I'm going to talk about today has already been better said by Little Squirrel and Skunk. So, if you want to skip ahead to coffee, we can just go and do that. I'm the executive director of the Nanaimo Area Land Trust. And as you can see from our slide here, NALT is turning 30 this year. And in those 30 years, we've operated in the territory of many Coast Salish peoples, with our primary base of operations situated in Nanaimo territory, where we are gathered today. And I thank you for this opportunity to speak to you and to speak about the place that we love and we call home. Next slide, please. Just start with a little bit about NALT. It's obligatory that you talk about the organization when you're up in front of people. So we're probably best known for the acquisition campaigns around Lindley Valley and Mount Benson. And I was looking at the memorial plaque in the back, and there are some names that were really prominent in that, and the Lindley Valley acquisition for sure, and the Pattersons and Barbara Hurston, who was a founding director of NALT. And a really special person. And some of you may also have known Gail Adrian, our founding executive director. And I would say that I call Barbara a peaceful, happy warrior, and Gail I would have called a force for nature. Next slide, please. Here's a map of some of the things we do and some of the places we do them. And so you can see it expands across the entire regional district and also beyond. So you'll see there's 4 stars sort of floating out at sea, and those indicate conservation covenants, which I'll talk more about later, that we hold on the Skeety Island. We're down in the Coke Silo watershed with another conservation covenant, and we're currently looking at some land in Port Alberni. So, that will take us beyond the area of Coast Salish peoples into a house that, so we really, we have, I always say we operate in the regional district with a friendly reach beyond, so there's that reach. Next slide, please. So the mission statement you saw about supporting, promoting, and protecting the natural values of land and water, I'm going to speak about some of those natural values, and then I'm going to talk about some of the things we do that affect those natural values. So the key on this map at the bottom of it, the third one from the bottom, it says CDF, Coastal Douglas Fir Forest. And this is the forest where we live. So if you look at the map and identify Vancouver Island and roughly figure out where Nanaimo is, you'll see a thin little band of orange. And that's where the Coastal Douglas Fir Forest exists. And Coastal Douglas Fir Forest is the most, this is a map of the biogeoclimatic zones of BC. So this is in that little orange zone. The apex plant community is a Coastal Douglas Fir Forest. And this is where we live. This is where we work. And it's the most imperiled zone in BC with the highest number of species at risk. Like the entirety of Nanaimo, the city of Nanaimo exists within the CDF zone. And part of the CDF, the Coastal Douglas Fir, includes Garry Oak Meadows, which are one of those iconic land features that that are a key piece of this place that we love. Next slide, please. I'm going to talk a bit about the human and political values, too, that affect this land where we live. And I'm going to start by talking again. This is where we live, right? This is where we build our houses. This is where we build our shops and carry out our commerce and build our parking lots and our roadways. And those sorts of infrastructure are, hard changes that forever remove that land from the Coastal Douglas Fir as a functioning ecosystem, a functioning part of that ecosystem, especially the way we have done things up until this date. There are things we can do that still allow us to carry on the commerce and where we live and how we move back and forth between those things. There are ways we can affect that are less negatively impactful and even in some cases maybe beneficial to Coastal Douglas Fir, but the way we do things has a huge impact, and this is, how we live, where we live is a huge impact. Next slide, please. I'm going to talk about the Sarlikun-Snuneymuxw Treaty, which is also what we probably better known as the Douglas Treaties of 1854. And this was when Vancouver Island and British Columbia were coming into as a colony of England. These treaties were signed with First Nations up and down the east coast of Vancouver Island. And it's, strange language when you look at the language of the treaty. It talks about, farms, enclosed fields, and dwelling units. And that really wasn't related to how First Nations lived here. First Nations here had many different dwelling areas and many different fields and food sources. And they ranged from, Departure Bay to the Fraser River to Nanaimo River and beyond. So like the language of this is really limiting. But they were signed, and I think from a First Nations point of view, it talks about the unoccupied lands and the right to hunt and fish as before. So at the time of the signing, most of these lands were unoccupied lands that were transferred to the Crown, and those rights of hunting, of fishing, of the commerce and economy that First Nations carried out were guaranteed as before. Next slide, please. I should also mention that those treaties have been used to uphold First Nations rights in our modern times. Our courts have sided with First Nations rights for the right to hunt across those lands. But what happened shortly after the signing of that was the E&N land transfer, sometimes called the E&N land grant. So E for Esquimalt, N for Nanaimo. It was the gift of a fifth of the area of Vancouver Island to Robert Dunsmuir for the purpose of building a railroad that never was completed, but the land was transferred. And this fifth of the land, right? That's where we live. That's when you're on the mainland and you're standing in a city and you're looking out to the mountains beyond, those mountains and the mountains beyond and the mountains beyond that are Crown land, right? Public land. And the ratio is somewhere between 90 and 95% Crown land and 5% private land. But in Nanaimo, when we stand in the city and look out at those mountains and the mountains beyond and the mountains beyond that, what we're seeing is private land. Next slide, please. And that private land, through successive ownership, has resulted in the current owners of that transfer of land, of that E&N land grant, are primarily forestry concerns. So, you know, it's names that we'll know from living in BC, Macmillan Bloedel, and then Weyerhaeuser, and then Island Timberlands and Timber West, which are now both managed by Mosaic. And so that 1/5 of the land of Vancouver Island that was given to Robert Dunsmuir has been, you know, is now managed as private forestry land with a different set of rules about how things are done than how logging is carried on Crown land. Next slide, please. One other component that causes some complexity about how we do conservation is the agricultural land reserve. Agricultural land reserve is a great thing, right? We want to protect our agricultural land for agricultural uses. It was brought in 1973, and it's really, you know, like if you look at the Fraser Valley, the land that still exists in agriculture there exists because of the agricultural land reserve. The housing pressure and the pressure to build malls and whatever in Fraser Valley has been curtailed a lot because of the ALR. But on Vancouver Island, if you look, you know, find Vancouver Island on the map there, find roughly around Nanaimo, and find the green area that's within the ALR, it corresponds really closely to that CDF that I talked about, the most imperiled biogeoclimatic zone with the most species at risk, right? So that ALR, the Agricultural Land Reserve, sits over top of that CDF and creates some barriers to conservation. So you think of ALR and you're thinking of farmland, but a lot of it as it exists around us is actually mature Douglas fir forest that, you know, that hasn't been used in farms. So we own a piece of land in near Bowser because the owner wanted to put a conservation covenant on it, and I'll talk about that a bit more, what a conservation covenant is, but we couldn't because the Agricultural Land Commission that administers the ALR land said, well, you can put a conservation covenant, this tool to protect the natural values, except you have to put a notwithstanding clause on that that allows all the uses that are allowed under agricultural use. So, you know, which includes things, you know, from time to time the list shifts, but includes things like golf courses, right? So, yeah, so the ALR is an impediment to conservation. Next slide, please. So I'll talk a bit about some of those conservation tools that we use in pursuit of our mission. And I'll talk about the ones we've used in the past, how we're using them today, and I'll touch a little bit about some of the things we're doing today to advise how our future will look. Next slide, please. Information and education. So since our beginning, we have undertaken to share information and expand our community understanding of and participation in conservation. It began with Project 2000, where we organized meetings around every watershed in Nanaimo and looked at the challenges and opportunities to protect those watersheds. And so that's one of the big ways that Nanaimo NALT got its start. And it's moved on to, you know, we continue to do water stewardship stuff around, say, painted turtles and habitat restoration. And it's really I think of it as we're working to build a culture of stewardship. And this makes me think of Little Squirrel and the skunk. But also, one of the songs you sang, which was about, you know, what I receive and what I give. And it's that reciprocal relationship, right? We restore what restores us. We take care of what takes care of us, right? So it's this reciprocal relationship with the land. Next slide, please. One of our long-running initiatives has been the Natural Abundance Native Plant Nursery. It started before I was with NALT. I've been with NALT for 17 years, and it's been running for about 20 years. And some of you would have known the Van Kerkels and the people that first created the room for us to have that nursery, but also eventually donated the land to NALT. So we have not only opportunities here to, say, buy and plants for, use in your garden, but also plants for restoring, say, riparian areas, streamside areas, or also opportunities to think of your yard differently, right? Instead of a lawn or an exotic plant place, a place where you can bring those native plants in and support a native, ecosystem connection so you can create habitat in your backyard. Next slide, please. Acquisition, this is what we're probably best known for. I talked about Lindley Valley and Mount Benson. Gail Adrian, I think, working with the presbytery of the local United Churches, them working together is why Moorcroft Regional Park exists, when it was slated to be sold to support the United Church. And if you don't know us for the acquisition of those, you might know NALT because of the myriad of events that happen around fundraising for an acquisition, like Music for the Mountain, or several galas that were held to raise those funds to buy land. Next slide, please. Conservation covenants. I mentioned them before about when in terms of how the agricultural land reserve affects them, but a conservation covenant is an agreement between a landowner and a land trust. It is registered on title. It is binding on the landowner and the land trust, and on subsequent owners. So that agreement that you've made doesn't just travel, with the owner, the original owner and the land trust, but is on title and travels to successive owners as we go along. So this is in a place where most land is private land, as a knock-on effect of the ENN land grant. This is a very effective tool for conserving natural values. So say if, this is real-world examples. People have a 40-acre piece of land. They might have a dwelling on it in a garden area. Say they have 5 acres in their use of, dwelling site and gardening site, and 35 acres might exist as a coastal Douglas fir forest. This would be a tool they could use to protect that forest in perpetuity on title. As long as we recognize title right, it would be there. Next slide, please. And this is a map of where some of our covenants are. There are a couple more that have been added since this. One to Lasqueti and one down in the Cowichan area. So some of these are on private land. Most of them are on private land, but some of them are also on public land, like Mount Benson Regional Park. Next slide, please. Restoration, right? This is sort of the meat and potatoes of why we're here. We've dramatically altered the landscape we live in. We have built right down to the stream edge, or we've mowed down to the stream edge. We have lawn instead of forest. So here are pictures of people doing restoration. All of them are in riparian areas, and this year we've carried out restoration work on the Nanaimo River, the Cat Stream, Departure Creek, Cottle Creek, Wally Creek, and also in meadows in Lindley Valley and Bowen Park. Next slide, please. Water stewardship. So we hold 1 or 2 stream keeper courses a year. In fact, this very weekend there's one happening. And these are the courses that teach people that are concerned about a creek what some of those indicators of stream health are, what the sort of structures that a healthy stream should have, and it organizes them to be able to repair some of those structures that get lost as we develop around creeks. So this is the beginning of the Departure Creek Stream Keepers. Cat Stream streamkeepers, Wally Creek streamkeepers. They all came through doing this course to form those groups that now look after those streams. We also carry out water quality monitoring with a region-wide network. And in addition to the streams I've already talked about, we're active on Holden Creek, Richards Creek, and Beck Creek. And we do lake monitoring on Diver Lake and Long Lake, flow monitoring on Caudle Creek and Departure Creek, cutthroat, trout, and western painted turtle surveys. And then we're also involved in a network that is measuring tire toxins as they enter streams. So 6-ppd quinone. It's a toxin that's added to tires to prevent their breaking down from UV lights. As we brake or as we accelerate, those bits of tires wear off, and that 6-ppd quinone leaches off of those tires onto the pavement, and then when it rains, those chemicals wash off the pavement into storm drains, and all of our storm drains lead into creeks. And in not very high concentrations, that chemical, that tire toxin, is lethal to fish, especially fish that spend some time in the stream, like cutthroat trout that spend, by and large, their entire lives in the streams, or coho salmon that spend time in those streams growing. So in small concentrations, it is lethal to fish, and we've detected that locally at an area on the Cat Stream near Wakasaya and 3rd, right? So it's an area where you brake to get the red light, and then you accelerate up a hill. And this is a place where the toxins wear off the tires, flush off the street into the Cat Stream. There are some elegant things you can do, though, to protect your streams against this, the thing called rain gardens. So if you hold the water that has these toxins long enough, they dissipate fairly rapidly. So if you stop that water from entering the stream right away, you can dissipate those toxins to the point where it's no longer lethal to fish. And so rain gardens are essentially engineered wetlands that we make to allow water to set, allow natural processes to happen with the plants that are in there, and for those deleterious substances to settle out and the water to either percolate into the ground or flow into the stream in a healthier form than when it went in. Next slide, please. So I spoke about acquisitions and the events around acquisitions that we're best known for, but this is our most recent acquisition. And did anyone remember hearing about the Westwood Ridges acquisition? If you did, I see some nodding heads, and that's normally if I say this, nobody's heads nod, because the way this went about was very different than past acquisitions. With a coalition of concerned groups, NALT brought this concerns around some logging that was set to take place on Westwood Ridges to the city of Nanaimo and to the regional district of Nanaimo in-camera sessions, so private sessions. And we were able to convince both the city and the regional district that these were too important to lose. There's, it's maturing coastal Douglas fir forest, rocky outcrops. It's like this very rare and unprotected landscape in our region. And not only that, but this connects between Westwood Lake Park and Mount Benson Park. So we were able to bring this to the city and the regional district. They took that and then decided it was worthy to do, and very quietly, without the fanfare of an acquisition campaign, purchased those pieces. And now that there's that continuity of a corridor between Westwood Lake and Mount Benson. So the way acquisitions happen now, in a lot of cases, is very different. And also the price of acquiring land for conservation, like everything, it's gone way up. So this is where, we're in conversation with BC Parks Foundation or the Nature Conservancy of Canada or the Land Trust, the Nature Trust of BC. These are large organizations that have, millions and millions of dollars for acquisition that can support protection of places locally. Next slide, please. We've also carried out some mapping to try and inform what values we're trying to protect. And this arose a couple councils ago when Councillor Don Bonner said, surely NALT has a list of the properties it wants to save. And we were standing there going like, yeah, you'd think so, but we didn't. And so we, with the help of a registered professional biologist with Environment and Climate Change Canada, we were able to identify the features that exist outside of riparian area protections with the city and outside of parks protections with the city, and identify areas of larger areas of older forests and larger areas of Garry Oak meadows as they exist outside of those protections. So in the images on the screen, you're in the bottom middle, that's a field full of camas, right? And that's Harewood Plains. And the bottom left, you're seeing the Hosakia pinnata, which is formerly known as Lotus pinnatus, which is the official floral emblem of Nanaimo. Now, Hosakia pinnata is an exceedingly rare plant. It exists on the Harewood Plains in abundance and a few other places, and then nowhere else in Canada, right? So this is an exceedingly rare plant. It exists in Nanaimo, and it exists outside of parks protection largely. So we identified these areas, that big older coastal Douglas fir forest and Garry Oak meadows of a size that were outside of parks protection. And so when, the list of Northfield Bluffs, Hammond Bay, Stevenson Point, and then you've probably been hearing a fair bit about Harewood Plains and Cable Bay lately. Cable Bay is where it isn't older forest, it is Garry Oak Meadow, right? So this mapping has helped us identify those spots and communicate that to the city and the regional district and seek ways of trying to protect them. Next slide, please. And we've tried to carry out this mapping process to the regional district, but using different parameters. And to do this, it's pretty this is brand new to us, and it still needs a lot of the sort of kinks worked out of it. But what we're focusing on is, if we think that 30% of our area as protected by 2030 is a good idea, then that should exist in all of the areas where we live. Not just, buying a large park in northern BC or northern Canada and calling it 30% protected. We want to protect all of our ecosystems, all of our landscapes. So we're using this mapping to identify how close are we to that 30%. And in this image, we've highlighted Area A. And that's the Cedar area. And when you look at all the parks, and these are big parks and small parks, and parks with swing sets and tennis courts too, it comes in at less than 3% of the land area is protected. So it shows us we have quite a ways to go to get to 30% in Area A. If we were to highlight the city of Nanaimo, it would flash at 18% protected. But again, that's pickleball courts and social centers. But if we can get close to 30%, then we can figure out how to filter out those paved surfaces and look towards achieving that 30% in other natural areas. Next slide, please. And second to last slide, so you guys we're getting near the end here. In the future, and this was something that was talked about and touched on during your service, and the future being our children. And we have this program, the School Water Stewards, where we go into classrooms, take kids out of their classrooms into their watersheds, and teach them curriculum-connected stewardship lessons around those watersheds. And that's, stuff about water health and stream health and, who lives here, which native plants are here. And it's been very successful. I think we have 13 schools in School District 68 and 69 signed up for this now. And it's elementary school age children. There is no cost to participate, so there's no financial barrier for schools or for students. And one great thing that's happened at Sayuent School, that used to be Koltai School, their school field stops where Northfield Marsh begins, and there's a little bit of a park there, and then the rest of it exists in right away for the highways. But the kids have been involved in monitoring the water that goes into the wetland, learning about the species, doing a survey of salamanders. And as they were doing these things and learning about the woods around, they noticed that there was yard waste being dumped right beside a stream that feeds into the marsh. And from that yard waste, there were invasive plants starting to make its way into the forest and into the wetland area. So these kids, with the help of the city of Nanaimo, where the city of Nanaimo provided free haul-away, they cleaned up all the yard waste. Then they removed all those invasive plant species that were creeping into the woods from that yard waste and replanted it with native plant species. And then they made door hangers, the things that politicians hang on your doors. And they did some artwork around the work they'd been doing, and then some language about what they'd done. And they went around to the neighborhood and hung them all on the doors, right? Beautiful stewardship, right? Just a lovely story. And like there's a quote there, I think it says, this is better than recess. And that, like, it's really neat to see kids turned on to being outdoors and doing things out there, right? It's like we don't have as much time outside. We certainly don't have as much unstructured time outside as we used to. So this has been a really great program. And this is, when we talk about building a culture of stewardship, this is where we're doing it. And it's also, in my secret mind, we're also building like a army of future informed voters, but we'll see if that comes to be or not. Next and last slide, please. So thank you very much for your time. I'm going to hang out after the service, and if I'd love a chance to chat with folks. Thank you.
That was an excellent talk, Paul. We are almost at the end of our service. After we sing Carry the Flame, you can join a social group, both online and in person. Breakout rooms will be available online for 30 minutes. We will have snacks and social time in the hall after this service. And now I'd like to say thank you to all those who helped create the service. Our AV team, Tony Turner, Cheryl Dendoff, and Howard Rose, the members of the Sunday Service Committee, our music director, Leah Hokinson, this morning's greeters, Brenda Stewart and Sharon Bolt, the kitchen crew of John Sewer and Taylor Sinclair, and everyone else who made it happen. Thank you. And now we'll have the closing words. Four-element blessing by Eric Williams. May the firmness of the earth be yours. May the flow of the water be yours. May the freedom of the air be yours. May the fierceness of the fire be yours. May all of the gifts of this life, the below and the above, be with you now and remain with you always. And now we'll extinguish the chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. We'll now sing our final song, Carry the Flame. The words are on both the back wall and the side wall. Please stand as you are able and hold hands or touch elbows as you feel comfortable.